Welcome back, everybody, to Joshua's Magic. Another week, another round of Alice A. Bailey quotes that we'll be exploring today. The topic today is the Heart Center. And after the quotes are finished, we'll have a meditation, guided meditation exploring the Heart Center, what's in the way, what do you need to understand about your Heart Center. So stick around for that. But the Heart Center is the fourth chakra from the bottom and from the top, the middle chakra linking the higher to the lower. And we will get into some quotes exploring that important energy center. And these quotes, you can find them all on my Instagram and also mine's page, which is linked in the description below. But we will get to the first quote now. This service is only the expression upon the physical plane of soul attitudes and activities, as the soul evidences them on its own level of consciousness. One phase of this dual work, the reflective works out in an increased realization and expression of the intentional living or of life with a purpose. It leads to a mode of living which is built upon a planned program which approximates itself as far as possible to the spiritual hierarchical plan and to hierarchical life impulses. The second phase, which is embodied in the formal meditation, is that of definite conscious withdrawal. If this is carried out correctly and with deliberation plus regularity, it will eventually bring about a most productive telepathic interplay between the disciples of the group and the individual disciple and the master in the larger ashram. So he's talking about a specific kind of service related to a group of disciples. It will also make the disciples sensitive to the higher gift waves. The entire meditation in its two parts involves, therefore, the linking up of the heart and the head, of the mystic and the occult approach, and also of feeling and knowledge. This is the important part here. Only from the heart center can stream, in reality, those lines of energy which link and bind together. It was for this reason that I've assigned certain meditations which stimulated the heart into action, linking the heart center between the shoulder blades to the head center, through the medium of the higher correspondence to the heart center found within the head center, the thousand-petaled lotus. So within the head, there's another heart center. There's a sort of corresponding heart center within the head center. And I think the other centers are also represented in a similar way. So the lower centers are represented in the head center. So there's, your heart center between the shoulder blades, but then there's a smaller version within the head center. This heart center, when adequately radiatory and magnetic, relates disciples to each other and to all the world. It will also produce that telepathic interplay which is so much to be desired, which is so constructively useful to the spiritual hierarchy, provided it is established within a group of pledged disciples dedicated to the service of humanity. They can be trusted. So not just the normal heart center, but the heart center in the head allows, as he's saying, a kind of telepathic interplay. And why is that so useful? Why do we need telepathy? Can't you just do good works on your own? Well, to take an analogy, your body functions, your will, your decision making is expressed through your body. And there's a lot of unconscious processes. But your body is held together through a form of telepathy, through your nervous system, through other forms of communication. And when you can you don't really think to move your arm necessarily, but the impulse, the desire or whatever to move your arm goes through your body and then it moves. And, if you imagine some sort of more clunky communication, like the equivalent of snail mail going through your arm, like you want it to move and then 5 minutes later it moves. Like just imagine how much less functional you'd be as a human being. And it's the same with humanity and the planet and other parts of the planet, like the spiritual hierarchy. Like if those impulses can freely move between humans and disciples and between humanity and the hierarchy. It's analogous to being able to freely express God or the planetary logos in the world. But if that interplay isn't set up, that service can't be expressed. And there's much more to it than that. But that's maybe a taste of why the establishment of correct telepathic interplay is so desirable. So we'll move on to the next quote, and if you'd leave a like on the stream, that help me get this message out to more people. We've got the next one here. And it's funny, in the Eastern drawings of the different center, they have these symbols in the middle. And, we recognize this one, but the Tibetan makes the point that those symbols need to go away because they don't convey anything to the Western mind. Maybe the symbol for the heart center is different in the Indian tabulation, because I know they're like sort of Hindu characters. But anyway, we'll continue on with this quote. Every human being in the course of time works his way back on the path of return to one of the three major rays. All have eventually to express intelligent, creative faculty, to be animated by divine love, or to bring into functioning activity the will as it works out in divine purpose and plan. So the path of return is basically spiritual return. The path outward is like the prodigal son going into the far country, the path into matter, into experience, into expression. And then at a certain point, things change. And like the prodigal son, we find the world loses its luster and we take the path of return to the Father's house to reconnecting with the Spirit. And one of these three rays, first ray of will or power, the second ray of love, wisdom, and the third ray of active intelligence, we find our path of return along one of those rays into the metaphorical Father's house, into the soul, and then later into the monad or the pure spirit, also known as the Father in heaven, our personal Father in heaven in a sense. The first center, which the aspirant seeks consciously to energize, and on which he concentrates during the early stages of his novitate, is the heart center. He has to learn to be group conscious, to be sensitive to group ideals, and to be inclusive in his plans and concepts. He has to learn to love collectively and purely, and not be actuated by personality attraction and the motive of reward. Until there is this awakening in the heart, he cannot be trusted to wield the creative powers of the throat center, for they would be subordinated to selfish aggrandizement and ambitions of various kinds. So this is, and I know some schools, that's the first thing that they focus on is a kind of meditation to open the heart center. But he talks about how important this is, that you have to have this heart activity before you can have the throat center more animated. And the throat center has a lot to do with creativity and expression and coordination. And you could have those things, but they might be, as he says, subordinated to selfish desires. But with the heart center, at least vivified to a certain degree, there's safety in it because there's a love and an empathy for your fellow man, and you're not just doing whatever you're doing for selfish reasons. So that's important that be opened up as one of the initial steps on the spiritual path. And the next day's quote, this is an interesting one. It gives some different take on the heart center. It was actually new to me. I mean, I think I've read it before, but the thought didn't register with me so much the first time. Telepathic work between subjective and objective groups. I do not refer here to the contact between an inner group of disciples functioning consciously on the subjective levels and the outer form that group takes. I refer to an inner group and a different outer group or groups. These groups on both levels can be either good or bad according to the quality or caliber of the group and personnel and their motives. So just to underscore what he's saying here, is, you've got an inner group, an ashram or a group of disciples, and then the outer expression, they're the physical bodies of those in incarnation. That's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about there's an ashram and an inner group, and that ashram is maybe affecting people telepathically outward. Like there's some group of people working in a church, or maybe helping people through business activity, or even in political office. So that inner group is affecting those outer groups. But they could also be negative. Instead of the hierarchy, it might be some of the Dark Brothers or the Black Lodge, or maybe even just entities that are kind of gray, like not good or not bad, but they're affecting people, like maybe some ghosts or something like that. So that's an idea of what he's sort of getting at here. But he says these groups on both levels can be either good or bad according to the quality and caliber of the group, personnel, and their motives. This opens up a wide range of contacts and is one of the ways in which the hierarchy of masters work as individuals. It is, however, not possible for groups upon the outer plane to respond to this type of contact until the bulk of their members have the heart chakra awakened. In this connection, a most interesting point should be noted. The awakening of the heart center indicates inclusiveness, group appreciation, and contact, also group thought and group life activity. And so he's saying that groups on the outer planes can't really even register this contact unless the large amount of their members have their heart center open enough. And so that's an interesting thought for how useful you can be in sort of a cell or an atom in the body of God, because it's analogous. If a cell in your body isn't open to following commands, maybe it becomes a cancerous cell or starts behaving wrongly. But if it's in line with its programming with the higher will, your will in this case, then it's going to behave rightly and be productive in the greater ecosystem. And where we need to move as humanity is towards that, towards groups that are open to divine inspiration, to those real telepathic impulses that come from the center to us on the sort of periphery. He continues on, so that we need the heart center activity to have that impression. But he says, unless, however, the head center is also awakened and active, the soul is not able to control. And this heart activity need not necessarily be what we call good or spiritual activity. It is quite impersonal, like the sun, of which the heart is, as you know, the symbol. It shines alike upon the good and the bad. The group activity, as a result of heart awakening, can include the bad groups as well as good groups. Therefore, you can see the necessity of awakening the head center and bringing in the control of the soul aspect. Hence, the emphasis is laid upon character building and the need for meditation. So that's the part that I found most interesting. Because before I was thinking of the heart center as, it could be overstimulated, but it wouldn't really be too negative. But this makes an interesting dichotomy that you have groups of people that are, how do you put it, focused on the group and group appreciation and stuff like that, and not so much upon the individual, but they could actually be bad or non-spiritual in a way. And so what I imagine is a group of people that are rising above their own group interests and putting them on the will of the group, maybe a political campaign or some sort of ideological movement. But that particular group, party, movement, sect its goals aren't actually positive. They might seem positive to the members of the group, but they're not. And so without that light of the soul able to come in and shine through, people can move in wayward or errant directions. And so, this idea of group selfishness, like people that are not just in it for themselves, but they want their group to succeed, maybe at the expense of other people or other groups. And so I think that's an example of some of this heart-centered activity that's not in alignment with the soul. I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts about that, or they've witnessed some examples of this in groups they've been in. Let me know in the chat or in the comments. On to the quote from Thursday. And in the work being done by seekers in all departments of human thought and life, this unification is proceeding, and in the training now suggested to earnest and sincere aspirants, there is other objectives There are other objectives than just the one of producing soul and body at one-ment. And he was just in the previous paragraph just talking about how the work to be done is the union of the astral emotional plane and the physical plane. That in the New Age, that's some of the work to be accomplished, and that sort of the physical and etheric plane have formed a sort of unit now, and the next stage is the astral and physical plane forming a unit. So there's this at one-ment, and part of the work of the individual is attaining that at one-ment between them, their body and their soul. No emphasis, however, is laid upon them, owing to the ability of man unduly to emphasize the wrong objectives. It might well be asked if it is possible to give a simple set of rules that would be followed now by all who seek to establish such a rhythm that life itself is not only organized and constructive, but when the moment of vacating the outer sheaths arrives, i.e. death, there will be no problem nor difficulty. I will therefore give you 4 simple rules that link up much that all students are now doing. So he's talking about things that you can do to make your process of moving on or dying a smooth one. So the first one, he says, learn to keep focused in the head through visualization and meditation. And through the steady practice of concentration, develop the capacity to live increasingly as the king seated on the throne between the eyebrows. This is the rule that can be applied to everyday affairs of life. So he's not just talking about meditation, for 30 minutes or 5 minutes a day. He's talking about maintaining your consciousness here throughout the day. Second, he says, learn to render heart service and not an emotional insistence on activity directed towards handling the affairs of others. This involves, prior to all such activity, the answering of 2 questions. Am I rendering this service to an individual, as an individual, or am I rendering it as a member of a group to a group? Is my motive an egoic, or rather soul, impulse, or am I prompted by emotion, ambition to shine, and love of being loved or admired? These 2 activities result in the focusing of the life energies above the diaphragm and so negating the attractive power of the solar plexus. Hence, that center will become increasingly inactive, and there will not be so much danger of puncturing the web in that locality. So this is just one way of developing a heart-centered consciousness, or one aspect of it. And rather than breathing exercises, it's usually best to the centers unfold by your consciousness. By you living rightly, it will automatically unfold to your chakras. And so breathing exercises in less common circumstances, a little bit can be done to tweak here, to tweak there. But one shouldn't be trying to just stimulate their different centers through meditation or breathing exercises largely. Because if they're not unfolding naturally by you living a correct life, you doing that is probably going to overstimulate them. It could even lead to some really dangerous effects for you, like nervous system imbalances and even insanity. So stay away from breathing exercises most of the time, except perhaps very mild ones. But what was I saying? Sorry, I just got interrupted by a phone call here. I think that was no, it wasn't the last quote. We're moving on to the next one. As often I've told you, it is not possible in any way in this work to do more than widely generalize. 60,000 million souls in the process of evolution, each following certain rounds of lives totally different from those of others, offer a wide field to those from and a wide field to choose from. And no one experience is exactly the same as another. But it might be generally laid down that there are 5 ways out of the many possible, which are of such frequent occurrence, comparatively speaking, as to warrant our enumeration of them. All have been hinted at, but I may somewhat enlarge the already imparted data. So he's saying that there's a lot of different ways people develop, and he's going to lay out some of the trends. I'm just going to delve into the first one because it has a lot to do with the heart center. He says, seeing the master and the self within the cave of the heart. As you know, the student has often been told to visualize himself and the master, about the size of a quarter-inch, within the circumference of the etheric heart. He is told to picture, towards the close of his meditation, the heart etheric, and therein build minute forms of the master to whom he is drawn and of himself. This he proceeds to do with due and elaborate care, with the aid of the imagination and loving effort, working daily on his figures till they become to him very real, and their building and forming becomes almost an automatic part of his meditation form. Then comes a day, usually when astrological conditions are fit and the moon approaches the full, when he becomes conscious within his brain that those figures are not the little puppets he thinks, but that he is within the figure himself, within the figure representing himself, and that he stands literally and all verity before the master. This occurs at rare intervals at first, and the consciousness of the fact is held but for a few brief seconds. As progress is made, and every department of his nature and of his service develops with greater frequency, will come the experience with longer periods will it be marked, until there comes a time when the pupil can link up as easily in this manner with his master as earlier he formed his figures. Just what did occur? The pupil has succeeded in doing three things: identifying himself with the figure within his heart and aspiring to the master. 2, making a definite channel between the heart center, wherein he is endeavoring to focus his consciousness, and its corresponding head center. Each of the 7 chakras or centers in the body, as you know, has a counterpart within the head. So there we go. It is in the linking up of the center with its counterpart in the head that illumination comes. This, in the case in that point, has been accomplished by the student. He has connected the heart within its head center. Not only has he accomplished the 2 above things, but he has so purified that part of the physical brain that corresponds with the particular head center that it can respond to the higher vibration necessitated and therefore accurately record what has transpired. And that's from Letters on Occult Meditation. So it's interesting, we touch again on the 2 heart centers, and that part of this particular sort of meditative process is linking up to the master heart center in the head, so to speak. So it's interesting to see that play out. But he says there's lots of different methods. So if this doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about that. But I appreciate everybody tuning in for these. We're going to move into the meditation now. And let's see. Yeah, so this will be a meditation exploring the heart center and hopefully giving you some insight into what's going on with your heart and what can be done to clear away blockages or further stimulate it and give you some other insights here. But I'm going to share a different background for the meditation here. And obviously, if you need more time with it, just feel free to pause it and continue on when it's suitable to you. It's always important to follow your own impulses and know where you are and follow that. So take a few moments to relax. Allow yourself to unwind and be unburdened by intrusive thoughts and feelings, and just shake out a little bit. Let the stress from the day clear away. You find yourself moving towards a cave. This cave represents your consciousness. And within this consciousness is a smaller cave, the cave of the heart. And prepare yourself to take a look into that cave. And when you're ready, we'll proceed down into exploring your own heart center. And now we step down into that smaller cave within the greater cave. And allow yourself to see what is the current quality of your heart center. Allow this to register in your consciousness. What qualities do you notice? Are there any trends or patterns? Are there blockages? Allow yourself to see what intuitively comes. And having seen what was shown in this part of the cave, move forward and explore a different part of the cave. And now allow it to come to you a vision of how you interact with other people, how you touch other people with your heart currently. Allow these things to come before your awareness. What are the interactions that are a quality of the heart center and not from emotion or lower sources? And see those interactions expanding, that your connections with others becoming more heart-centered, more in alignment with the activity of the heart chakra. And when that's finished, when you finish visualizing that, we'll move on to the last portion. Explore another part of the cave higher up than the others. And this part represents the heart center in the head. And this may not be right for everybody, but if it is, allow yourself to see. Ask to be shown or given inspiration on how you can connect your heart center to the heart center in the head. What work can you do, and what is right for you to do along these lines? And now slowly move back down to the center of this cave and allow the energy of your experiences to fill your consciousness and the quality of the heart to be present in you. And with that consciousness and energy, move back into the cave of your wider consciousness. and allow those energies to radiate out to the dark places within that cave, to those areas that aren't touched yet enough by the heart energy. Take a few breaths in and out. And return to your normal consciousness. And we'll end by saying the Om. Om. I hope that meditation was productive for everybody. Thank you very much for tuning into the live stream and sticking around. And if you enjoyed it, please give me a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't, and share it with somebody else who you might think would value it. But until next time, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell.